And we continue Amud Yomi Gemara Berachos Daf Tezayin Amud Aleph. We pick it up on the bottom of Tezvavim and Beis. The last line, it says the Gemara. What is the reason that a holim, tents, are said next to nechalim and next to brooks? Explain the Gemara D'chsev. As the pasuk says, stretching out like the rivers, the brooks, like gardens by the river, tents pitched, etc. So why does the Torah put oilim next to nechalim? To teach you just like a nachal, a brook, a river, a mikvah takes one from tuma impurity to tahira to purity. So to the oilim, Midrashi says, is the bati midrashais, brings a person from Kav Chayva le Kav Schos. We continue with the two dots, 4 lines down to Zayim and Aleph Akar Lemafreya le Yatza. So when it reads out of order, they're not Yatzi. Says the Gemara Varami Ravasi. Have a kakatun like in another Rav Elazar. We're building a canopy, a chuppah, a wedding for Rav Elazar. Amar Lahu, Rav Elazar said to them, Adachi Vachi Izel Veshem Milsadrein Shasha. Rav Elazar, sounds like he's the chassan, said in the meantime, let me go learn something based medrash while you guys are building the chuppah, and I'll come back and I'll tell you. So Rav Yochanan goes, and Rav Elazar goes, excuse me. And what does he find? That's busy saying over in front of Rav Yochanan. If someone is reading, if someone is saying Shema, and they make a mistake, and they don't know where they're up to, let's go into the gears of the Bach. Yachzer l'reish, go back to the beginning. B'emsa perek, yachzer l'tchilas ha-perek, and even the perek, being perek l'perek. Between each perek, yachzer l'perek rishon, and they go back to the first perek. Being siva l'ksiva, if they're not sure which uchsaftem they're up to, there's two, the first and second parish of Shema. Yachzer l'ksiva rishon, they go back to the first one. Basically, you go back to the previous place that you know for sure you said, and therefore in any case of suffix, you go back to the beginning of the previous point. So only if you did not begin, then what do we say? Then we assume you did what you're habitual to do, which is to complete Shema, says Rashi. Other Mefarshim learn differently, but that's the man. That we say we assume at that point that you finished. So also Rav Elazar came, and Rav Elazar told Rav Ami and Rav Asi what he heard. Amrule, they said, if we would have only came to hear this, we came to build you a whole chuppah. But if we would have only came for this, it would have been enough. We continue with the Mishnah, says the Mishnah, we have workers, they're allowed to read at the top of a tree, at the top of a row of stones. Which are not allowed to do with regard to Shemona Esrei. That's by Kriya Shema. But by Shemona Esrei, they're not allowed to read on the tree or the wall. Chassid, Patim Kriya Shema, allowed to read Shaina, says the Mishnah, Chassid does not say Shema the first night on Motzai Shabbos until Motzai Shabbos. Continues the Mishnah, only if he did not perform the Maisa, if he didn't have the Bia Shaina. Well, there was a story of Gamliel that got married. And he Lamaisa did read. What's going on? You taught us that a chassid's butter. Gamliel responded, says Gamliel, I'm not going to listen to you to not to be Mekabel Omar Shamayim even one time. Continues the Gemara Tanarabana, no, they say Shema at the top of the tree, at the top of the wall, and they're even allowed to be mitbalel, they're even allowed to daven, which refers to Shemona Esrei, Bosha Zayis, Bosha Teina, Tabla Zayis, and Olive, or Teina, or a fig tree. Sharkuli Lanus, but any other tree, Yard Lamat Mispalim, they have to go down and daven. Says the Gemara, if he's not a worker, someone who's not proficient, he's not normal, he doesn't feel comfortable on top of a tree, then he has to go down and he has to daven. Before we continue, just look at the first Rashi in the Gemara. Rashi points out, what's the Rish Hazayis, Rish Teina? Rashi says this is while they are working, and because enough in Merubin, there's a lot of branches, and you're able to stand without any difficulty, and you're not worried you're going to fall, therefore you're able to daven at the top of them. But other trees, you're not allowed to daven at the top of them. Continues the Gemara, Rami, Barad, Tabat, Shmuel, Rava, Rami, Rav Mari, Barad, Tabat, Shmuel, asked Rava, Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Hom, Nin, Karim, Brejil, and Roja, Nidvach, Alma, Loi, Bai, Kavana. we see that you don't need kavanah for Shema v'Remini. But what are we going to say? We just learned previously that what does the pasuk teach us? Yisrael. And it says, Askis Shema Yisrael, be attentive and listen. Malhalan Askis. Just like over there is Askis, Avkan Ba'askis, you have to be attentive, meaning you have to have Kavana Ishtik. Rava did not answer. Amalei. Rava responded, Did you hear anything about this? So Amar Lei, Rav Mari responds, and again, Rav Mari was one that asked the Kasha, now he responds, Hachi Amar Rav Sheshes. This is what Rav Sheshes said, that only way that they're allowed to read Shema on top of the tree is if they are bottled from their work, they stop working, and they read, meaning that they need to have Kavana. Just in the Chiddush that we're learning is how to be on top of a tree, but not that you don't need Kavana, therefore it conforms to the previous Gemara of Shema Yisrael and Haskis Shema Yisrael. Ask Gemara about Tanya, but we learned in a brayso of Yisrael Aimrim. At the end of the first parak, seemingly while they are working, you're allowed to say Shema, meaning that you do not need Kavana. Like we saw over there, Parak Risha, you need to have Kavana. That's what we're referring to over here. That's referring to over here. Parak Sheni, that's what it meant. Is at the latter part of Shema. Continues the Gemara Tanu Rabbanon. We're about 20 lines to the bottom. First one line is Rishon. Workers working by Balabayis. They say Shema. They say the brachos of Shema before and after. And they eat and the ladder bench and wash beforehand to make amaitzi. Avol. What are they not allowed to do when the one is working for someone else? Ein yardin lifnei ateva. They don't daven for the Amud, and they do not dochen. But seemingly, they're allowed to say a full Shema, they're allowed to even say the Berachos Kriya Shema, allowed to say a full Shema Esrei, etc. Asks the Gemara of Tanya, but we learned in a brayso elsewhere, Me'ein Shema Esrei. We learned, actually, we're going to learn later on, you say in a bridge Shema Esrei, Rav Sheshes Lo Kasha, Rav Gamliel, who says you say the whole thing, Rav Yeshua, that says you say in the short form. Rav Yeshua says Gemara Ma'ir Pa'ilim. If you look at Adam Nami, Rav Yeshua is of the opinion that always you're able to recite the shortened version of Shemoneh Esrei. Answers Gemara, you're right. Elai Divad Rav Gamliel read both cases of Rav Gamliel. V'loi Kasha Kan Ba'isen B'scharan, when they're being paid B'schar, then you say the shortened form, one is they're being paid for the meal. So if they're being paid for their meal, then they have more of a liberty, then they're allowed to actually daven properly. But when they're being paid just b'schar, then they have to daven much shorter. Ask the Gemara 1 second. V'atanya, but what about a brayso that says Apolim Shaisim Malacha It's Balabais, Karin Kriyish Ma'u Mispalin, and they do not make the bracha. They say a short in the Berachos Hamazon. Keitzad bracha rishana kitikuna. Shnai, the second bracha of benching posech Berachos Haaretz, Kol Bnei Yerushalayim Berachos Haaretz. And they say Bnei Yerushalayim together with Berachos Haaretz. They say it all as one. B'medvar mamurim. When does this apply? Ba'isei b'scharon. Aval ba'isei b'sudasan. But if they're working for their meals, Aishoyz b'albayis meisiv alei, and then mivarchen kitikuna. Excuse me, this wasn't a Ve'atanya as a kasha. I apologize for Ve'atanya. This was a raya. As we see, as Rashi 2 lines into the very wide lines points out, that we see in this brayso the chilik, the difference between one working for his food, then he's saying the shortened version, whereas one is working for schar, then they bench properly. Similar to what we're saying, that when one is working for schar, he'll be able to daven when he's working for his food, he will be able to, again, I said it backwards. If one is working b'schar, then he does the shortened version, whereas one is working for his food, then they could do the more lengthy version. We continue 5 lines to the bottom of the 2 dots. Chas and pater mi kriya shema on the leila rishon until after Shabbos on Rabbanon. B'shez chavvei sitting at home proudly saying a mitzvah that comes to exclude someone doing a mitzvah. Overlechtacha proud and we've seen this already. Mekane amru, from here we say psula pater v'samana chayiv. My mashma, where do we see that from the pasuk that one is pater? Amar Papa ki derech. It says that you say the Shema b'lechtecha b'derech. Ma derech rishos is optional. Avachan I'm rishos. Whereas if you're doing a mitzvah, then you're going to be pater. Ask the Gemara Milot Skin to cause of our mitzvah. What do you mean? Maybe b'derech means you're on the road to go do a mitzvah. V'ilachem rachman alikri, and still the pasuk says b'lechtecha b'derech. Imkein, as we conclude the Amud, says the Gemara. Lema kra b'leches my b'lechtecha shma mina b'lech zidachon b'chayves ad mitzvah b'tirta. It's only going to be your walking that you're going to be chayiv. But if you're doing a mitzvah, then you're going to be potter. As we turn over to Zayin Mebeis for a moment, Yachi asks the Gemara, you're also doing a mitzvah. Answers the Gemara, Hacha, when it comes to a sula, the first time one gets married, Tarid, you're preoccupied, Vacha, whereas one is married already, Loi Tarid. Ask the Gemara 1 second, if the whole thing is due to preoccupation, Nami, if someone is preoccupied with his business, his boat is Rahman al-San sinking at sea, he as well should be potter. We've learned why special din by tefillin, but all other mitzvahs and aval is chayivin. How can aval be chayiv for saying that one who is tarid, one who is preoccupied, is potter from mitzvahs, and aval certainly is? Answers the Gemara, Amri Hasam Tir de Rishos. When an aval, he is preoccupied with a Tir de Rishos, personal preoccupation, meaning it's his own issue. Hacha Tir de mitzvah, whereas by us, by Concise of Basula, so the answer is you need both. You need a mitzvah and tirda. That's when they have the patur. This last Gemara we saw previously at the end of the first parak. We'll continue from the Mishnah B'siyata Dishmaya.